The smell hits you before anything else. Stale wine, cheap lamp oil, stone that hasn't dried out in years. You learn to breathe through your mouth, at least at first. Later you stop noticing it entirely. That is somehow worse. The building is narrow, 2 stories, pressed between a bakery and a fuller's shop on a street that never fully goes quiet. Through the wall on your left, you can hear the bakery fires start before dawn. Through the wall on your right, the stench of the urine vats the fullers use to clean cloth. You are sandwiched between the city's hunger and its filth, and that is not an accident. This is exactly where they put places like this. You are standing in the entrance when the lanista, the owner, looks you over for the first time. Not at your face, at your teeth, your hands, the straightness of your spine. You have seen men look at horses this way at the market. He assigns you a cell. That is the word for it. Cell. It is barely wider than your arms stretched out. A raised stone platform for sleeping. A thin mat. An oil lamp in a niche in the wall. A curtain instead of a door. Rough fabric. Dyed a color that might have been red once. You pull the curtain closed and stand in the dark. This is your life now. The sign above the entrance is painted directly onto the plaster. Crude figures. A price list. Your name, whatever name they've given you, will be added when you are ready to work. In Pompeii alone, archaeologists would one day count over 30 lupinare, the Roman word for brothels, scattered through the city. The word comes from lupa, wolf, the slang term for the women who worked inside. You are a wolf now. That is what the city has decided. Most of the women here did not choose this. That is the first thing you understand when you start talking to the others. Some were slaves purchased specifically for this work. Some were freed slaves with nowhere else to go and no legal protection to speak of. Some were girls whose families fell into debt and sold what they could. Some were simply taken, from the ports, from the roads, from provinces Rome had recently conquered and stripped of everything. A woman named Cytheris is one of the first to speak to you. She has been here longer than anyone and moves through the building with a kind of watchful economy. Never wasted movement, never unnecessary words. She tells you what you need to know in the way someone tells you things when they are done being surprised by how bad things are. The owner keeps the money, all of it. You receive a small cut sometimes, if he is in a generous mood. Mostly you receive food, the lamp oil, the mat. You are housed the way livestock is housed, because a sick animal doesn't work, and that is the entire logic of your care. The prices are fixed by him, not by you. They are painted on the wall outside, next to your name, for anyone walking past to read. 2 asses for the cheapest offering, 8 or 10 for something more. To give you a sense of the scale, a cup of wine at the tavern across the street costs 1 ass. You are priced slightly above a cup of wine. The clients arrive at all hours. Some are soldiers, still in their tunics, loud with the specific confidence of men who have been given authority and choose to use it badly. Some are merchants who treat the visit as routine as stopping for bread. Some are slaves themselves. Roman law did not prohibit enslaved men from visiting brothels, and the owners sometimes preferred them as clients because they were less likely to cause trouble. Some are quiet in a way that is more frightening than the loud ones. You learn the signals fast. The particular way a man sets his jaw when he has decided that whatever happens here doesn't count as something that happened to a person. The looseness in the shoulders of someone who came here angry and is looking for somewhere to put it. You become very good at making yourself small, not invisible. That would mean losing the income, but small, non-threatening, agreeable in a way that asks nothing in return. It is its own exhausting art form, and there are no teachers. You learn it by surviving the nights when you got it wrong. The days have their own rhythm, but first you have to get through the nights. There are hours when the curtain doesn't stop moving. Client after client, some barely pausing to look at you. You learn to go somewhere else in your mind. not checked out, because you need to stay alert, but slightly sideways from yourself. Present enough to manage, far enough away to survive it. The women here all have their version of this. Nobody names it. Nobody needs to. You recognize it in each other's eyes the morning after a bad night. A certain flatness, not sadness exactly. More like a door you've pulled shut and are standing behind. Morning is yours, in a sense. The clients mostly come in the afternoon and evening, which means the early hours belong to the small tasks of staying alive. You wash. You eat whatever is provided. Bread usually, olives, occasionally something hot from the street stall the owner sends a boy to fetch. You mend your clothes if they need it. You talk to the other women. Those conversations are the truest part of your day. You learn that Irene was brought from Greece as a child and has not seen her family in 11 years. That Lydia speaks 4 languages because she was trained as a household slave in a wealthy family and then sold when the family's fortune collapsed. That the youngest girl, who calls herself Flora, is so new that she still flinches at the sound of the curtain rings on the rod. You watch Flora and remember your first weeks, the way the ceiling of your cell looked at night, the specific quality of not sleeping in a place that is never fully silent. You don't tell her it gets easier. That would be a lie. You tell her which clients to watch. You tell her where the owner keeps a second lamp if hers runs out. Small things, practical things. The only kindness the building permits. Rome has a complicated relationship with what happens here. The law is explicit. Women registered as prostitutes hold the lowest legal status in the empire, below freed women, below slaves in some respects, because a slave belongs to someone who has a financial reason to maintain her health. A meretrix, the official term, belongs to no one in a way that means she is protected by no one. She cannot bring legal charges against a client. She cannot testify in court with the same weight as a citizen. If something is done to her inside these walls, it is not a crime the city recognizes. The same law that strips you of protection requires you to register openly, to pay a tax, to wear a specific color of toga in public so that you are identifiable. Rome profits from your existence while making sure you understand you are outside its concern. You find out about the toga requirement, not from the owner, but from Lydia, who tells you one afternoon, with the specific bitterness of someone delivering information they wish they didn't have. You must wear it in public. The color marks you. So does the registration. Your name entered into the aedile's records, like livestock entered into a ledger. The city wants to know what you are at all times. The city wants other citizens to know too, so they can arrange themselves accordingly, so that a respectable woman is never accidentally treated the same as you. That is the thing that sits in you like a stone. Not the work itself, as awful as it is. The active effort Rome puts into reminding you what you are worth. The law does not ignore you. It sees you clearly. It simply decides that what it sees does not count. The philosophers write about virtue in their villas. The senators debate morality in the forum. And here, on this narrow street between the bakery and the fuller's shop, the empire's hypocrisy makes itself concrete in stone and lamplight. Some women find their way to something better. You hear about them the way you hear about everything in this place, sideways, in pieces, between one task and the next. Volumnia Cytheris, different from the woman in your building, though the name is common, was a slave who became one of the most celebrated performers in Rome. She moved through the highest circles of the late Republic. Mark Antony kept her company publicly, which scandalized Roman society in a particular way, not because of what she was, but because he didn't hide it. She attended military campaigns. She sat at the same tables as senators. A woman who had started with no legal standing and accumulated, through skill and proximity to power, a life that looked nothing like where she had begun. She never fully escaped the law's category, but she built something inside it that the category couldn't contain. You think about that sometimes. What it would take. What you would have to become. There is a woman 2 streets over whose name you only know as Melissa. She has been in this city for 20 years, long enough that certain regulars have become something like patrons. Not love. You are not confused about that. But a kind of loyal arrangement. One of them helped her secure a small room of her own, outside a brothel, where she receives whom she chooses and keeps more of what she earns. It is not freedom, but it is a different kind of unfreedom, and that distinction matters. You hold it in your mind the way you hold small things that might be useful later. A woman in your building, older, careful with her words, has been setting aside a small amount for 3 years. Not much. Coins hidden in a wrapped cloth behind a loose stone near the base of her cell wall. She has shown no one except you, and only because you found it by accident and kept the secret without being asked. She is not saving for anything specific. She is saving because having something hidden is a form of having something. You understand this completely. You start doing the same. The amounts are small enough to be meaningless on their own. Together, over time, they are something else. There is also the body to manage. Disease moves through places like this the way water moves, finding every crack. You learn the signs early because the other women teach you, because this is the practical knowledge that keeps you working and therefore keeps you alive. A client with certain symptoms is turned away, quietly, with an excuse that cannot offend. The owner doesn't care about your health as a matter of principle. He cares about it the way a tradesman cares about his tools. A broken tool doesn't earn. There are no doctors who come here. There is a woman on the next street who knows which herbs reduce a fever and which ones do something else entirely. The kind of thing women in your situation sometimes need and never discuss openly. You know where she lives. Most of the women in this building know where she lives. That knowledge is passed like everything else here, quietly, between people who understand that no one else is going to help them. The nights are the longest part. The lamp throws a yellow circle on the stone ceiling. You lie on your mat and listen to the city settle. The last carts allowed inside the walls only after dark, their wheels grinding on the paving stones. The occasional voice from the street. The bakery fires starting up again before dawn, because bread must be ready when the city wakes. Rome never fully sleeps. It just gets quieter. You have learned the city by sound more than by sight. By the time you arrived here, you had already stopped moving freely through it. The street outside, the bakery, the fuller's shop, the corner where a street altar has a small oil lamp that someone always keeps lit. That is most of what you see. But you know the forum exists somewhere beyond the rooftops, because you can hear it on election days, the crowd noise rising and spreading like weather. You know the amphitheater is to the east, because on games days the roar carries for a mile. You know the aqueduct is working because the fountain 2 streets over runs all night, and you fall asleep to it sometimes, the only clean sound in this building. Rome is enormous, and you live in a 6-foot cell inside it. You have been here long enough now that you know this building sounds by heart. The particular creak of the 3rd step on the staircase. The way the curtain on the cell next to yours moves in the draft that comes through the gap in the upper wall. Irene's voice when she is tired versus when she is simply quiet. You know this place better than you have ever known anywhere. That is its own kind of grief. There is a moment that comes back to you sometimes, not often, but at certain hours of the night, when the building has gone still. You were maybe 14 when you arrived. A man came in on one of your early nights, older, smelling of the docks, and he brought a small oil flask with him. Ordinary, nothing remarkable about it, except that it had been made somewhere you recognized, a particular shape common to where you were from, a style you had seen on your mother's shelf. He set it down without noticing it, paid, left. You sat with that flask in your hands for a long time after he was gone. You were a person with a mother once, with a shelf, with a home that had a particular smell in the morning and a particular light in the afternoon. You had a name that someone had chosen for you with care. All of that was still inside you. The building couldn't reach it. The registration couldn't touch it. The law that had decided what you were had no language for what you actually were, which was a person who remembered everything that had been taken. Most women who passed through places like this left no record, no name preserved, no story written down. The walls of the Pompeii Lupanar still exist, excavated, studied, photographed. The stone platforms where women slept are still there. The painted signs above the cells. The graffiti scratched into the plaster by clients and workers alike, preserved under the ash of Vesuvius for 2,000 years. The buildings survived. The names did not. But they were there. You were there, moving through those narrow rooms, learning that city sounds, protecting the younger girls when you could, holding on to the parts of yourself that the system had no mechanism to remove, lying in the dark on that stone platform, listening to Rome's carts grinding through the streets below, still a person, still, despite everything they had done to make that irrelevant, stubbornly, completely yourself. And that, in a city that had written your erasure into law, was the one thing they never managed to take.